Assalamu alaikum class. Now we move on to lecture number 3, and that actually is about the chapter number 2, the last topic of chapter number 2, and that is about the tenses. In the last topic we have discussed about the verb in detail. We have discussed about their kinds and their kinds in detail, in other words, and the use of the verb as well. For example, we discussed in detail about the use of modal verbs. Now we are moving on to tenses. Actually, this is what the important role of verb we are going to study. What actually, we start with a definition. What actually tenses are? If we try to define tenses in the context of the verb, we say a tense when verb is used in context of the time, it is called tense. When verb is used in context of the time, it is called tense. Basically, as we would have discussed the tenses in detail in our preliminary classes, what the tenses are, or the 12 types of tenses we are going to discuss. There are 3 basic types of tenses. The first 3 are called present, past, and future. By present means we mean today. Past is called the yesterday, and future is called the tomorrow. So what we are going to discuss? We are going to discuss all the activities of our life in the context of these 3 basic times. Okay? Okay. Again, this present times. Now, if we look into in this day, we see that there are many actions which we have performed. There are many actions which we performing. There are many actions which we perform on regular basis, and there are many actions which we have, some part of which we have performed and the other part is going on. So we are going to discuss first of all the present tense in detail. We are going to break up the present into 4 different breakups. First of all, present. The first is called simple present. Simple present actually is the new name given to the old name present indefinite. The second is called present progressive. Present progressive actually is the new name given to our old tense present continuous. Present perfect is the same old name. And the last is called present perfect progressive. Present perfect progressive. What do we mean by simple present? By simple present, we mean the tenses or the actions which we do on our regular basis. In our today's time, which we do on habitual basis, that is called simple present. For example, we can use the broader area of the board. Let me remove it. Simple present. A tense which is used for the actions of today's actions which are done on the regular and habitual basis. For example, Sarah goes to school regularly. Sarah is a good student. Here both of the time frames shows the regularity of an action, of the habitual of an action. that is called as simple present. No, actually, whenever we study a tense, we see it in two different contexts. One of the contexts is called structure and the other is called as function. Well, first of all, we will see in detail all the tenses in the context of the structure, and then afterwards we are going to study them in the context of the function. For the structure explanation, we are going to have a tabulation sheet where that would be more useful or helpful in understanding or in having the explanation of them. First of all, we make a tabulation in the way simple present, present progressive, present perfect, and the last is called as present perfect progressive. It is also called as combination tense, present perfect progressive. First of all, simple present. We are going to see what different forms are used, fine, how to make the affirmative sentence and how to make the negative and interrogative sentence. Number one, simple present. It is used subject plus first verb form and object. He goes to school. This is the first form of the verb. Here I am using the first verb form of the verb. But we see what we have done with the first verb form. I have an addition of es. Whenever we are using third person pronoun or singular noun, we are going to use s or the addition of s or es with the first form of the verb. Fine. For the construction of affirmative sentence. Number two, present progressive. Subject plus fourth verb form plus object. Fine. He is going to school. Here going is the fourth verb form. Whenever we are discussing the form of the verbs, we have seen that we have read three regular verbs and irregular verbs. Fine. In those particular topic, we have read the topic of forms of verbs. Forms of verb. We have read the three forms of the verbs in that particular context, but here we'll be using a larger context of the form of the verbs. We need to have that in detail first, so that we can have a explanation in the about the use of forms in this context of the tenses. We see there are actually 5 forms of the verbs which are being used in grammar. The first is called as present. Second is called past. Third is called past participle. Fourth is called present participle. And the fifth is called infinitive. Fine. For example, go, went, gone, going, and to go. We can also keep in mind these 5 names of the verb as present is the first verb form, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So you can use always the name of the fourth verb form, or you can always use the name of present participle here in place of the fourth verb form. Fine. I am writing it for the convenience of the place of the board fourth verb form over here, so that you keep in mind that actually by fourth form of the verb we mean the present participle form of the verb. Okay, I hope this context of the fourth verb form would be clear to you. Now we move on with the same topic. Present perfect. How we are going to make the structure of this tense? Subject plus which form of the verb we'll be using? Subject plus third verb form plus object. And again on the present perfect progressive, subject plus, again actually this is a combination of perfect and progressive, so we'll be needing both of the form of the verb here in this combination. Number one is called subject plus has been or have been plus fourth verb form and then object. This is actually the structural formula of present perfect progressive. Now we move on to the examples as well. For example, he has gone. I'm using the same sentence for all the form of the for all the types of the tenses, so that we can have a more clear picture of the uses of the verb. Fine. He has been going since 1998. Fine. Now let me discuss. I am supposed to use since and for this tense. Why? Because actually whenever we are using two time frames, we need to have a little bit explanation of the two time frames. We sometimes need to give the duration and sometimes we need to give the beginning of the times, so that we come to know that how much the extent of the action we have performed. So we use these two words. Since is used for the point of time. Point of time. What do we mean by point of time? Actually we mean it beginning time. Actually when we have been given the beginning time, we use since for that. And for is used for the period of time. Means whenever we have been given the duration of the actions, we use for that. Okay, here I have been given the beginning time, so I'm using since for that, and this is what we use in the present perfect progressive most of the time in present perfect progressive. But in modern grammar we see that sometimes we do not even use the since in this combination tense. Present perfect tense, here I am using the third form of the verb named as past participle, that is shown as this. Fine. Here I am using the fourth form of the verb. Here going is the fourth form of the verb with the name of present participle. Okay. And here I am using the first form of the verb, which is called as present form of the verbs. Fine. These were the structures which we have been shown with the actual use of the verbs. Now we move, if we want to construct the negative sentences, what we are going to do them, how we are going to replace, or how we are going to add with the main form of the verbs. He does not go to school. Whenever we are going to use the negative sentences, we'll be needing two helping verbs, that is called as do not and does not. Again, does not is used for the singular noun and third person pronoun, and do not is used for the plural verb or the first form of the first person pronoun. Okay. Now we move on to present progressive, the negative construction of this tense. He is not going school. To construct a negative sentence, I'll be needing what? I'll be needing is the addition of not with is. Instantly the addition of not with the helping verb. Is, am, are, the afterwards, the is, am, are, I'll be using the addition of not in the sentence. Again, in the third structure, for the negative construction, he has gone. Again, I'll be using has not or have not according to the subject. If the subject is plural, I'll be using have not, and if the subject is singular, I'll be using has only. Not only with the has. Okay. In this last tense, for the construction of negative sentence, I'll be doing what I'll be doing. He has not been going since 1998. So what I have done, I have used not instantly after the has. Fine. Instantly, in other words, instantly after the helping verb. This was all the construction of the present form of the tense with their negative sentences. Now we move on to interrogative sentences. What we are going to make change in a tense, in the sentence, if we are going to construct the interrogative sentences. What we are going to do? Actually, we are supposed to find out, does he go to school? And we are going to add question mark at the end of the sentence. And again, in the interrogative of present progressive, is he going to school? We are taking helping the verb out, and the left of the sentence would be constructed in this way. And with the third present perfect, for the interrogative of present perfect, has he gone? Again, the question mark at the end, and here in the present perfect progressive, has he been going since 1998? Here was the construction of interrogative of present perfect progressive tense. So this was all with the structural formula or the structural construction of the present tense in detail. Okay. Now we move on to past tense. As I have already discussed, the present tense actually represent the time frame of our today's actions. By simple present, I mean the tenses of about which I am habitual of doing. Fine. Present progressive, by that I mean that the actions which are going on at the time of speaking. By present perfect, I mean an action which already has been done or an action which has just done. Present perfect progressive, an action about which some part is done just before and the other part of the action is going on. This was all with the present tense. Now we move on to past tense. We have discussed in detail about the structure so that if any confusion is there, we can always clear it. Now we move in the same context, we are going to study about the past tense. So that this is the simplest way to learn about the structure of a sentence. We are going to have the same tabulation for the past tense. We are going to have the same way how we construct 4 different types of past form of the tense. Now we move on to past tense. We are going to have the same construction about the past. Simple past, here comes the simple past, then past progressive, afterwards we have the past perfect, and the last is called as past perfect progressive. Past perfect progressive. Okay. Simple past. Again, subject. Now I am going to use, in this tabulation, I am going to use the names of the verb. Subject plus second verb form is known as past. Past form of the verb. Past form of verb plus object. He, example, he did not, sorry, he went to school. Actually, it was first the affirmative sentence, so we are going to have the first form, second form of the verb. Past progressive. Subject plus. Past progressive is known as past present participle. Plus object. Past perfect, subject plus past participle, form of the verb, and then object. And here comes the last form of the verb of the tense, that is called subject plus had been. Here we will be only having had been in place of has and have been, which we have studied earlier in the present tense. Had been plus fourth form of the verb is called present participle, form of the verb, and object. Now we look on to the examples. For example, he, present participle, he was going. Again, here you have to see one thing, that whenever the participle form of the verbs are used, present participle is used. Present participle is actually a weak verb. It is always assisted with the helping verb, and was has been provided to its help or for its help here in this context. He was going to school. Past participle, he had gone to school. Had gone to school. And the past perfect progressive, gone is the past participle of verb go. Past perfect progressive. Now we come on to the example. He had been attending seminar for 3 hours. Here I am using for because I have been provided with the duration. We are not going to use since in place of this for. Why? Because we have been given the duration, and whenever a duration is provided, we always use for in that context. Okay. Went was the past form. Present participle was the fourth verb form, and it was provided with the help of was. Gone was the past participle form, and it has been provided with the help of had. And again, past perfect had been shown in this combination, and attending is the present participle form of the verb, and seminar is the object. What we are going to do with the negative construction, whenever we need to have the negative construction of the tense, we always require helping verb, and whenever for the past, simple past, we have only one helping verb, and that is called did not. Did not is the helping verb which represent the negation of an action in this simple past context. Fine. He did not go to school. What is specific to did not? Whenever a did not is used with a verb, it always takes the first form of the verb. So we have turned this past form into present. Again, the negative construction of past progressive. What we are going to use for all the negative construction of the tenses, we should always keep in mind that we always use not instantly after the helping verbs in the sentences. What are we going to do? We are going to add not with was or were if any of the helping verb is there in the sentence. So we are going to add he was not going to school. Now I'll be using another tense in the future form because this going is actually creating boredom in the topic. Okay, now we move on to the negative. Fine. In the negative of past perfect, had actually is the helping verb. So what we are going to do? We are going to use not with this helping verb had. He had not gone to school. So this is all the negative construction of the past perfect. Now we move on to past perfect progressive. How we are going to use the negative construction of this? Here the helping verb is had not been. Helping verb is had and I have used not instantly after this helping verb. So the sentence would come and would be constructed in the way he had not been attending seminar for 3 hours. This was all the construction of the negative sentences. Now we move on to how we are going to move there on to the interrogation of these particular tenses. We can always erase some of the area so that the picture becomes clear. For construction of the interrogative sentence, what we do? We always take out the helping verb out. Did he go to school? Fine. And for the past progressive interrogation, was he going to school? And for the interrogation of past perfect, had he gone to school? And in the end, interrogation of past perfect progressive. Had he been attending for 3 hours? This was all the 4 form of the past tense, their affirmative, negative and interrogative structure. Now we move on to the last tense that is called as future tense. Future is always a forecasting. Future always represent or forecast the tomorrow's time. For example, it always forecasts our future. Whenever we have already read in modal verbs that 2 modal verbs all actually are used to forecast the future, that is called as will and shall, and we are going to use those particular modal verbs in the construction of the future tense. This is how we see future. First of all, simple future. The second is called future progressive. The third is called future perfect. And the last is called future perfect progressive. First of all, we see what are different time frames actually these types are representing. Simple future, a regular intention of doing something in my tomorrow's time, that is replaced as simple future. Future progressive, an action which was going for some times in my future time, for some time in my tomorrow's time. Future perfect, an action which I will have been done, which I will have completed in my future time. Future perfect progressive, an action about which will, about of some part which will have been completed in my future, and the other part will be going on in my future time. See, now we are going to, as this was all with their definitions, now we are going to see how they are constructed actually as far as their structure is concerned. Simple future, subject plus. Here I'll be using will and shall as a model verb. And what is the will and shall? Specific to will and shall. All the modal verbs always use the first form of the verb whenever they are used in a sentence. So will and shall plus first verb form and then object. He will complete his lesson. Complete is the first verb form, or in other words, you can always call it the present tense. I have used both the names with the first, with the order of the, with the number of the verbs and with their names as well. Number 2, future progressive. Subject plus will, shall. Again, fourth verb forms, which is known as present participle and object. He will be completing his work. Here shall and will be used with the addition of be in this construction. Fine. In future perfect, subject plus will and shall, both of them use have. There is no use of has in this construction. Have plus object plus verb. कौन सा verb? Which verb? Third verb. And object. Future perfect progressive, subject plus will, shall, have, been, and fourth verb form and object. Now we complete the examples. He will have completed his work. Future perfect progressive, he will have been completing his work. This was all with the construction of affirmative sentence of future tense. Fine. Now we move on to their negative and interrogative forms. Very easy. As we have already discussed, whenever we are going to make any negative construction, we always use not with the helping verbs. Here are the modal verbs. Here I will be using he will not complete his lesson. He will be he will not be completing his work, and in this future perfect, he will not have completed his work, and in the last form, he will not have been completing his work. As I have already told you that I can always use the construction of future perfect progressive without the use of since and for, as I have just done it in this example. Now this was all the negative construction. Now we move on to interrogative sentence. Let me erase the board so that you can have the clear picture of it for the interrogative construction. What we do, we always take out the modal or the helping verbs out. Will he work hard? This was the interrogative construction. Will he be reaching in time? Again, the use of interrogative sign, the sign of interrogation at the end. For future progressive, the construction would be like he have delivered. Will he have delivered the message? Sign of interrogation at the end. And future perfect progressive. Will he have been performing duty since 2019, and sign of interrogation at the end. Now this was all the construction of the tenses. Now we are left with only the functional part of the sentence. As far as the functional part of the sentence, what do we mean by actually functional part of the, or the functional use of the tense? By functional use, we mean actually sometimes a tense is not used in the same perspective as the structure is showing. As far as the functional use of tenses is concerned, actually we have two basic tenses which have their variation in the functional use of tenses, and that is called as simple present and present progressive. They actually vary from their functional, their structural use. What does it mean? That means that a present tense, as we have already discussed, present tense always shows the present context. I am using it for the completion of the activities in my today's time, but we see how it is going to vary it from the structural use. We are actually going to close this topic with this functional use of tenses. And first of all is the use of simple present. Simple present has a variety of different uses in the context as far as the functional context is concerned. Number one, simple present is used always for the revelation of the facts, or in other words, for the universal truths. Whenever we are going to describe the universal truth, we always use this simple present tense. earth revolves around the sun. Number 2, whenever we are going to have an intention of doing something in my future, I always use simple present tense. For example, for the title we can see it for planned future action. Fine. Imran Khan visits Karachi tomorrow. Here is the planned future action. Number 3 is whenever we are going to have, excuse me, for the third use, it is for the, as far as the third use is concerned, it is used for dramatic action. For example, for the live commentary, if you have heard, it goes like this. Here he strikes for a big hit or for 6. Fine. Whenever, if for the live commentary, we always use simple present tense instead of the present progressive. I have not used it like this. Here the batsman is striking for the big hit, or rather it would be used as here he strikes for a big hit. Fine. And the last use of present tense as far as the functional use is concerned, that is called for regular actions. For example, and actions which are done in our regularly in our daily life or habitually in our daily life, we always use simple present tense. He is a regular visitor of markets. If I do not use this regular verb and word, and if I say he is a visitor of markets, that shows the habitual or regularity of an action, and that is called the fourth use of functional use of simple present tense. Fine. Now we move on to present progressive. Actually, these two tenses have the use which varies from their structural use. Here that is called as present progressive tense. Fine. Again, present progressive tense, as far as the functional use is concerned, first of all, it has, again, as we have discussed, for planned future action, he is having his exams in spring 2020. That means he is going to have, or he is having his exam, or he is taking his examination in the year 2020 and spring attempt. Fine. Number 2. By present progressive tense, actually we means an action which is going on at the time of speaking, but sometimes we do not use it for the action, immediate action, as far as the time is concerned. Sometimes we use them for the actions which are not going on at particular time, rather which go on in these particular days. For example, He is studying novel in these days. He is studying actually is not showing the particular or immediate action, rather it is showing an action which is not going on that particular time, rather which is going on in these days. So it was all the functional use of tenses. All the other tenses have functions which is very much coordinating to their structure, but these two tenses that includes simple present and present progressive, their functional use varies from their structure, so which we have already discussed, the practice actually of this chapter that lies in page number 46 to 48. Fine. That practice actually involves some of the other uses of tense as well, or some of the other the topic as well, which includes in chapter number 7. So will be more convenient in using or in practicing this exercise when we will complete this topic. Okay, so this was all with the structural and functional use of tense.